Hello again, folks. Nice to see you. My name's Dustin Cormier, and this is How to Rock Astrology. Today we are going to continue our reading of Light on Life, an introduction to the Astrology of India by Robert Svodoba and Hart de Fouw. We've been reading from chapter 1 of the book, still going through the guts of the history of Jyotish, its etymology, and its meaning. We are going to discuss now Jyotish's limbs in this episode, getting a little bit of ground on the background of what we know as natal astrology and what other types of astrology Jyotish considers itself to be, because there are many types. Astrology, Jyotish is a huge body of India's collective consciousness, really. So let's see how Svodoba and Hart de Fouw break down the many facets of Jyotish. The original Vedanga Jyotish was mainly confined to identifying and predicting the recurring astrological phenomena which signaled occasions for ritual sacrifice. Myth may have so sufficed the Vedic Jyotishis that they needed little of a system of Jyotish in order to practice divination. As the deep significations of the Vedic texts had themselves, however, As the deep significations of the Vedic texts hid themselves, however, it became nearly impossible to learn Jyotish by tales alone. As time passed, greater precision of measurement made it possible to introduce a more mathematical approach to observation. Rational thought then gradually replaced intuition as the dominant form of human consciousness. The seers who saw these changes in human consciousness codified their observations into rational principles, which metamorphosed their observations into systems of astrological analysis. The branches of Jyotish, which grew during the golden age of India's astrological development, are traditionally classified under either skandhas, parts, or angas, limbs. The three skandhas, which appear to have been an earlier classification, are listed here in Table 1.2. Got Ganita Skanda, Samhita Skanda, and Horary Skanda. Sorry, I'm trying to get... Anyway, I would love to get a clearer picture of that. Feel free to pause the video when it got clear for that moment. My weird camera is just like that. So, these are the three skandhas and their meaning. Ganita Skanda is an astrological and astronomical calculations of Indian Jyotish classical literature. Ganita Skanda is the astrological and astronomical calculations. Samhita Skanda. This relates to sundry observations, including celestial omens, the weather, economic cycles, earthquakes, the varying fortunes of the population at large, erotic recipes, house construction, the manufacture of exceptional glues, and the sighting of water wells. And then the Horary Skanda, the third, is the interpretation of horoscopes. So, of course, there are, we can see that natal astrology is considered under interpretation of the horoscopes, the Horary Skanda. Now, there are 6 limbs to Jyotish, just as there are 6 Vedangas for the Vedas. Prajna Marga, a text on horary astrology, lists them as shown in Table 1.3. So this is the 6 limbs of Jyotish itself. Let's see if I can get a good one here, at least for a moment. Here we go. Spherical. So there's Gola, spherical astronomy and direct observations and observational astronomy. Then there's Ganita, astronomical and astrological calculations. Jataka, which is birth or natal astrology. That's, again, what natal astrology is considered under. There's also Prajna, answering questions without the use of a natal horoscope. That's horary astrology. So lots of people that actually commonly use this that are also part of my tropical Vedic astrology community, including Ryan Kirkzak, among others. Ernst Wilhelm is into Prajna as well. Muhurtas are choosing astrologically auspicious beginnings for any endeavor. It's electional astrology. And Nimitta, which is the interpretation of omens. So, Prajna Marga. So, the Prajna Marga is a text on horary astrology. Prajna Marga states that one conversant with all 6 branches of astrology will never err in predictions. A tall order, quite a tall order. Such an astrologer is a true Daivagnya, Daivajna, which is roughly a knower of God's intention. Jyotishis of this quality still exist, but are very rare, even in India. It's interesting. It kind of goes to show that with, electional astrology, Prajna, and Muhurtas, transits of the present day, being considered to be an important part of Jyotish. It kind of shows, it shows that in order to get this knowingness of God to be a Daivagnya, you've got to know not only natal astrology, but also electional astrology in order for your prediction to be precise. And that's true in the sense, I don't practice Prajna myself, not just yet anyway. I haven't found it to be as prominent as the rest of my studies, but it's good to get these guts, these roots. So let's go through them a little bit. The first one is observational astronomy, called Gola. Jyotish concentrates its observations on 9 planets. It's the Sun, Moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu. From the scientific point of view, the word planets is a misnomer, for only 5 of them are what science today calls planets, the other 4 being a star, the Sun, the Earth's satellite, the Moon, and Rahu and Ketu, which actually have no physical existence at all. The Moon's north and south lunar path nodes, as we shall see later in the book. Rahu is the northern intersection, the north node, and Ketu is the southern intersection, the south node, of the plane of the Moon's orbit around the Earth with the plane of the ecliptic. The ecliptic is the plane of Earth's orbit around the Sun, which is perceived by observers on Earth as the Sun's orbit around the Earth. These 2 orbital planes intersect because the Moon's orbital plane is inclined about 5 degrees from the plane of the ecliptic. This is a little bit of hard astronomical reckoning. The whole book isn't this dry, but this is some bones that we kind of need to digest before we can. It's just good preliminary bones to see. Just like any good college or any experience will give you these bones, even if you don't ever use them, right? So, the ecliptic is the plane this is talking about Rahu and Ketu, which are hugely important to astrology, the astronomy of them. The ecliptic, let's see here. Rahu is the northern intersection, and Ketu is the southern intersection of the plane of the moon's orbit around the Earth with the plane of the ecliptic. The ecliptic is the plane of Earth's orbit around the sun, which is perceived by observers on Earth as the sun's orbit around the Earth. So these two orbital planes intersect because the moon's orbital plane is inclined about 5 degrees from the plane of the ecliptic. So it's kind of like one spinning here, and the other one is spinning slightly. Like this one's going completely straight, and this one's going slightly on a diagonal. They're bound to hit at some points. The two nodes are the points where solar and lunar eclipses occur. It's kind of hard stuff to explain. I'm better with the astrology than the astronomy, but I digress. It is important. Some astrologers today, noting that science has discovered 3 more planets and numerous asteroids, assert that Jyotish is somehow incomplete and can be improved by adding these bodies to its repertoire. Yeah, so the outer planets and the asteroids. So Svodoba and Hart Fouw say that it is, however, no coincidence that the number of the planets used in Jyotish is also the number of single-digit integers in our base 10 numbering system. Jyotish needs no more than these 9 planets to describe reality, because, as we shall see, these 9 planets are more than mere material entities. Those who seek to add new planets to Jyotish do so only because they have not yet comprehended its heart. I understand what they're saying here. As a Western roots astrologer, there are times, and this was written, I believe, in the 90s and released sometime. Ooh, I should know this. First published in 1996. And this is the 2011 reprint. So this was, in my opinion, what was just stated, which is that those who seek to add new planets to Jyotish do so only because they have not yet comprehended its heart. There's an essential truth there, but I would consider that there is a deep truth in use, which is implied by the outer planets, at least. The androids, I wouldn't quite call them the same. But, as I've said in other parts of these videos, the outer planets do not have anything to do with the chakras in the way that the 9 planets of Jyotish do. It's modern Jyotish is many modern Jyotish practitioners have included, with success, in my opinion, the success is there, the outer planets of Western technological advancements using using a telescope. So keep that in mind. I'll always pepper in my opinions about some of the things in this book, but ultimately I'm going to try to stick to the given text of the author. So that was all about Gola. Now the next limb of Jyotish is called Ganita. It's the astronomical and astrological calculations. Ganita dealt with observations and calculations for horoscopes, as well as for computing calendars, seasons, eclipses, lunar and planetary cycles, the heliacal rising and setting of the stars, and other such matters. Since the ancients had no aids as sophisticated as those the modern astrologer used for calculations, most Jyotishis in the past were forced to master both mathematics and spherical astronomy in order to generate their data. Such Jyotishis always took their calculations very seriously. The famous authority Varahamihira cautioned that an error in Ganita is as heinous a sin as the murder of a brahmana, a priest. Wow. Because Jyotish originally included astronomy and astrology as two inseparable portions of one and the same study, works that discussed both Gola and Ganita went under the name of Siddhanta. The most famous of these works are the Surya Siddhanta and the Drik Siddhanta. Because inaccuracies were inevitable in the early days, the Surya Siddhanta advises Jyotishis to use regular observations to confirm the accuracy of predicted planetary motions. The Surya Siddhanta is a well-used and well-quoted scripture for many modern YouTubers in the Vedic camp on YouTube. It's an important title to keep in mind. Now, the next limb of Jyotish is, of course, the one we all know and love, Jataka, which is natal astrology. The relating of the position of the planets at an individual's time and place of birth with the various events in that person's life, which is known as birth or natal astrology in English and as Jataka or Janma in Sanskrit. This is what it's usually meant by the term astrology, and most of what appears in this book is Jataka, natal astrology. Now, to round it out, we also have what's called Prajna, which is horary astrology. Now, horary astrology investigates the correlation of planetary phenomena at the time a question is I'll say this again. Horary astrology investigates the correlation of planetary phenomena at a time when a question is asked with the answer to that question. Almost all questions are answerable from a horoscope calculated at the time of the question, or determined in a variety of other ways, including the phonetic values of the syllables uttered by the questioner, the parts of the body the questioner might touch, the compass direction in which he or she stood at the time of the question, or a random number he or she might choose. Although the body of horary knowledge gradually grew to rival in volume that of natal astrology, little of this was written down. A few famous classical works in this genre are Varahamihira's Daivagnya Vallabha, the Shatpanchisika of Prithuyasha's, which is Varahamihira's son, and Prajna Marga, a detailed and complex work authored by anonymous Jyotishi and Nilakanta's famous Tajika work, Prajna Tantra. Now, next up, after Prajna astrology, we have something called the next limb of Jyotish is called Muhurta, and this is electional astrology. Jyotish is the eye of the Veda, partly because it enabled the ancients to see the astronomical moment when religious and social rituals should be performed. Actions tend to produce results according to the planetary configurations under which they are initiated. The need to gauge the efficacy of actions begun at a given moment, 1 muhurta equals 48 minutes, may have made muhurta the first sector of Jyotish to have been systematically developed. The literature in this field is small compared to that of Jataka and Prajna, but it is relatively concise. A standard work is the Kalaprakashika of Narasimha. Much of this tradition remains oral and only now is being gradually committed to print. Kind of cool. Now, the next limb of Jyotish is the final one, called Nimitta, which is the interpretation of omens. To read an omen is to read the book of nature, a tome which is written in the language of events. The texts of Ganita Skanda deal extensively with the interpretation of such non-cyclical omens as the flight of birds, the sights and sounds encountered during journeys, the burning of lamp wicks, and the appearance of meteors. Among the many varieties of natural omens, celestial omens alone are predictable. A thorough understanding and interpretation of omens requires one's intuition to be in full bloom. It is nearly impossible to do this without direct instruction from a skilled omenologist, thus making Nimitta the Jyotish limb most dependent on the oral tradition. Still, sections devoted to it appear in the classical works, the most famous of these being Varahamihira's Brihat Samhita. Cool. Classic stuff. It's very cool. As me as someone who's been delving into Jyotish astrology for at least 4 years now. It's nice for me to go through this again and see the roots again, the authors of the names that I hear so much talked about with other Jyotishis. That was the limbs of Jyotish. Now, on our next episode, I hope you guys enjoyed that. In our next episode, we're going to actually talk about the styles of Jyotish, which is essentially going to talk about, it's different from the types. These are mostly, referring to natal astrology now, Jataka. So now we're actually talking about the different types and roots of how we do and make our definitions of astrology and our explanations for how different planets relate in different way with each other and with the signs, etc. So I can't wait to get there with you folks. I'm Dustin Cormier for How to Rock Astrology. Thanks for watching. If you guys are enjoying this, let me know in the comments and, like, subscribe, all that fun stuff if you are enjoying it, because we are going to have more stuff coming out all the time, and I'd love to see you there. Thanks for watching. I'm Dustin Cormier. See you later.